In this video I'm going to show you how you can create princess seams using the two darts on your bodice front block. So I'll be using this large dart here, the bust dart, and this dart here, the waist dart, and I'll be ignoring the lower part of this pattern. The princess seams can go from the centre shoulder right down to the waist, or they might come from the armhole down to the waist. I'm going to show you how you can create the seam which goes from the armhole down to the waist. I'm going to use the pivot technique to move this large bust dart into the armhole. In order to do that, I decide where the dart's going to go. So I want to put the new dart here, just above the armhole notch. So I've marked on the block where the new dart's going to go, and now I'm going to draw around the block, starting from the right hand leg of the dart I want to close and stopping when I get to this point here. So I'll trace around the block, coming across at the waist seam, marking in those darts. I'm going to just use this bust tip here because I need these darts to be connected, so I'm going to ignore that point here and just use the one at the bust point. Carry on drawing around the block until I get to the notch in the armhole, and once you get there, stop. Then I need to pivot the block to close this large bust dart and to reopen the dart here in the armhole. So to use the pivot technique, put your pencil in the tip of the dart, pivot so that this leg meets the other leg, so you're closing that dart up, stop when it comes to my little marker, and then I carry on drawing around the block from where I marked the position of the new dart, so from here and then to that dart there. And then when I take this away, I'll be able to complete the rest of this using my ruler, drawing across the waist, drawing in the waist dart and drawing in my new armhole dart that I've just created. Now I've moved the position of the bust dart, I can start to draw in the shape of my princess seams, and to do that I'm going to use the shape of the legs of the darts and draw in a more natural curve. So I want to try and eliminate this pointy section here where the two darts meet. So I'm going to use my ruler and just start on the inside of the two. So if you imagine when this piece is separated, this would be my side front panel. So I'll start with this one, and I'm going to take the line as it is almost towards the tip of the dart and take the bottom line almost towards the tip of the dart. But in this section I want to just curve this round, so I'm going to just cut off that corner there. And then I want to do the same with the other side, and I'll use a different colour so that you can see the difference between the two. And this time I'm going to use the same line that I've got here at the start of that dart leg at the top, and the same line that I've got at the bottom. But I need now to make them join at this section here. So I'm going to curve, join my new line I've created here, and just blend that round. You'll see I've got the side front piece here where I've got the pink line, and the centre front panel is going to be finishing where that new blue line is. Next I'll put in a notch. So for my notches, you can decide where you're going to put them, but the best thing is to try and make sure that they're going to be in useful places. So I could just put one straight through the middle there where those points intersect. So I usually try and take my notch at a 90-degree angle across the line. So that would be my 90-degree angle there, drawing my notch across. And it would be also useful to have a notch around the bottom part here as well. If I just measure up a couple of centimetres from that bottom waistline there, and then I can draw a line straight across here. So that will indicate my notches for the bottom section. Next I need to trace off, so I've got two separate pattern pieces. I'm going to use tracing paper to trace off my pattern pieces. To be as accurate as possible, try to use a ruler on your straight lines as much as possible. I'll start with the side front panel and just trace off tracing carefully around the curve. And then mark in the notches. So that's going to be my side front piece, and on the same piece of paper I should have enough space to be able to trace off the centre front piece as well. Just draw in the curves. Draw in the notches. And there I've got my traced off two pattern pieces. So this would be my side front and my centre front. I'll just move this out of the way. To make my pattern complete, I need to add seam allowance. I need to make some markings on there as well. I'm going to label up, first of all, for the centre front, this would be cut on the fold. So that would be denoted by an arrow that looks like this. You can also label that as CF for centre front. I'm going to just add 1 centimetre of seam allowance because I'm working in half scale. And on the side front I also need to make sure I've got a grain line, and I'll draw the grain line so that that's parallel with the side seam. And try and make your grain line as long as possible. It makes it much easier when you're actually using patterns. And where I've got the notches, I need to take those lines through the seam allowance. Keep the same angle of the line as you draw through the seam allowance. You need to also add to the pattern how many of each to cut. So the front piece I'd need 1 on the fold, and the side front I'd need to cut 2. And now I'm ready to cut those pieces out. So I've managed to cut my pattern pieces out, and if you wanted to, the next thing you could do would be to just tidy up where you've got any excess lines. It's quite difficult on the curves to have really clear lines, but it is important that you try and do your best with those. And then anywhere around here where I've also got some additional lines that I don't need. And now my pattern pieces are complete. You can complete exactly the same technique for princess seams on the back panel as well. So I can adapt my dart here, create an opening here, and create a princess seam on the back of my garment to mirror the one that I've done on the front. So I'll just show you how you can do that as well. For the back piece, I need to just trace off all the way around the block. I'm going to mark in that shoulder dart there and the tip of that dart because I'll need to include that. Trace around the armhole and come across at the waist seam, marking in the waist dart up to that line there and carrying on around the block. So again, I can draw in the waistline, draw in that waist dart, and I'm going to keep this small dart here at the top and just draw that in there. The next thing is to decide where you want your seam to come from. So I'm going to draw in my line in the armhole. I'm going to put it about there. And then I can draw in the new shape of the princess seams, getting rid of this pointed section here where the dart and my new line meet, and create my new panels. So I'll draw almost up to the tip of the dart there and draw almost up to the tip of the dart here. So I'm just focusing on this line and the right hand dart leg, and then I'm going to make a curve there, getting rid of that pointed section. And then for the second part, I'm going to be following the same line here, exactly the same line, and the left hand dart leg, and I'm going to draw that almost up to that curved section, and then the curved part here is going to touch the pink bit, and then it's going to just follow exactly the same line there all the way to the armhole. And as we did before, I can trace off those two pieces, but before I do that I want to put in some notches. So using this as my centre point here, and I'm going at a 90-degree angle across where that line is, put in a notch here, and then just measure up from the bottom. I'm going to just use the width of my ruler to do that. Put another line here, and I could, if I wanted to, put an extra notch over here as well. So I've got 3 balance points around the back, and then I can't confuse the back section with the front section when I'm matching up the notches. I'm going to use tracing paper again to separate the panels, and I'm going to use my ruler as much as possible to do the tracing off to be more accurate. Now I've traced off those pieces, I can add a few markings to those pattern pieces. I'm now ready to cut out my pattern pieces. There is one little tip that I'm going to give you, and that's what to do if you have some these weird kind of pointy sections. So you're not going to need all of that seam allowance that goes right the way up to that point. My tip is to fold along the seam line in both directions to make a crease. And then where that triangle piece there extends, I'm going to just fold that back. So that's where my lines extend. The seam line extends there, that extends there, and this is the section here that I don't need. So I'm just going to cut across there, and I can remove that part here. In order to do that, I just folded along the seam line here, and folded along the seam line here, and almost if you pull that backwards, you can see that would be the section I'm going to remove. There is the bit that overlaps, and I'm going to just cut that off. And so my pattern pieces are now complete.